All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you're sitting in the Colorado Springs Police Department Academy right now, well, consider me your virtual field training officer for the next few minutes. I know you need a rock-solid overview of the different statutes you'll be enforcing out there, complete with all the elements and some concrete examples. So act like your FTO is telling you to learn this material cold. Because honestly, what we're covering today is the exact blueprint you need to not only pass your exams, but more importantly, to survive and make the absolute right calls on patrol. Let's get to it. So anchor your brain on this quick roadmap. We're going to cover Title 16 on arrests and warrants, Title 18 covering person crimes, then family crimes and domestic violence, arson, burglary, and robbery, and finally climbing the theft staircase. All right, let's break it all down. First up, Title 16, arrests and warrants. Because before you can charge a single crime, you've absolutely got to know what you're legally allowed to do out on the street. Think of your Fourth Amendment requirements as escalating from a simple hello all the way up to full custody. Step 1, consensual contact. You need zero justification for this, but the person absolutely must feel free to leave. Then step 2 is a detention or a Terry stop. Here you need reasonable, articulable suspicion that a crime is actively happening. Moving up to step 3 is a frisk. Now remember, this isn't a full search, and you can only do it if you reasonably suspect they are armed and dangerous. And finally, step 4 is a full arrest, which, as you know, requires absolute probable cause. Now, instructors absolutely love to test the sharp distinction between two major exceptions to the warrant requirement, mostly because officers confuse them all the time. Remember, emergency aid is a public safety action. You just need an objectively reasonable belief of an immediate crisis, like someone screaming for help inside a house. Exigent entry, on the other hand, is a strictly law enforcement action. That one requires actual probable cause for things like a hot pursuit of a fleeing suspect or stopping the active destruction of evidence. Okay, moving on to Section 2, Title 18, Person Crimes. Let's see exactly how the criminal code layers the severity of these offenses. Imagine a sort of heat ladder where crimes are ranked by severity. Red literally means felony and prison time, while the cooler yellow and green levels down at the bottom are your jail time misdemeanors. Notice how murder and kidnapping are sitting right at the top in the deep red, while things like simple harassment or reckless endangerment sit all the way down in the green. Let's look at the absolute highest rung. The crucial point that distinguishes Murder 1 from Murder 2 is the mental state. Murder 1 requires deliberation and intent. Think of carefully planning a hit on a rival. Murder 2, though, drops that deliberation element. It just means knowingly causing a death, like, say, pulling a gun and firing during a sudden escalating bar fight. Now for the assaults. I want you to chant this memory hook out loud. 1 is done, 2 hurts you, 3 walks free-ish. The whole concept narrows at the very top because, thankfully, fewer people commit first-degree assault. But man, the injuries and the sentences up there are far, far worse. Let's drill down into the hinge points here. Assault 3 is your baseline misdemeanor, like recklessly pushing someone down so they scrape their knee or feel pain. But add a deadly weapon to the mix, like hitting them with a baseball bat, and boom, you bump right up to Assault 2. Now for Assault 1, you actually need the intent to cause serious bodily injury. We're talking a substantial risk of death or permanent disfigurement, like intentionally shooting someone in the chest. Next up, Section 3, Family Crimes and Domestic Violence. This whole area builds into one of the most critical, fast-paced, and honestly, potentially dangerous calls you're going to handle on patrol. To charge anything as domestic violence, you first got to establish the relationship. Just memorize the DIBS acronym. Dating, intimate partners, baby together, spouses. You use this to immediately identify if a relationship actually qualifies when you arrive on scene. And keep in mind, a sexual relationship is a factor, sure, but it's not strictly required. These are the big 3 rules you absolutely cannot forget. Number 1, DV is not a standalone charge, it's a sentence enhancer attached to an underlying crime, like in Assault 3 or criminal mischief. Number 2 defines the act, violence, threats, or coercion, and yeah, that even includes using animals for revenge. But number 3, that's your golden rule. When it comes to DV, you have absolutely zero discretion. If there's probable cause, the MAD acronym dictates a mandatory arrest without undue delay. Even if the victim is begging you not to take them, if the elements are there, somebody is going to jail. All right, moving to Section 4, arson, burglary, and robbery. Let's pivot to property crimes, where understanding specific statutory definitions is literally the only way you'll write an airtight arrest affidavit. Before we even talk about fires and break-ins, You have to know that an occupied structure isn't just a house, it's any area used by persons or animals upon occasion that the defendant knows is occupied. This definition is the absolute linchpin for elevating crimes like arson and burglary to higher-level felonies. So here's the arson breakdown. First degree involves a building or an occupied structure. Second degree is property other than a building, think a car or a fence. Now, third-degree arson is totally unique. It actually requires the intent to defraud. You know, like a classic insurance fraud scenario where someone burns their own property just to get a payout. And finally, fourth degree is your only reckless mental state, where someone is simply placed in danger. Now, the difference between second and first-degree burglary all comes down to specific aggravators. If a suspect breaks into a detached garage to steal some tools, well, that's second degree. But if they break in and menace the homeowner with a knife, they just turned a standard break-in into a Class 3 felony first-degree burglary. You absolutely cannot confuse these next two on the street. Theft is simply taking something of value without authorization. Robbery, on the other hand, requires a taking from the person or presence of another by force, threats, or intimidation. So if a guy secretly lifts a phone off a restaurant table, that's theft. But if he violently shoves the owner out of the way to grab that same phone, you've now got a robbery. And here's a commonly missed route to charging aggravated robbery. The suspect doesn't even need a real gun. No way. If they possess a simulated weapon, like say they're just pointing a finger under their jacket, or even if they just make a verbal claim that they're armed, that perfectly meets the elements for the aggravated charge. Finally, Section 5, climbing the theft staircase. We're going to wrap up this explainer with the single most tested dollar threshold in Title 18. Think of theft levels like a staircase. Every single step up means more money stolen and a much harsher penalty. But pay attention here. The second a theft hits exactly $2,000, it completely kicks the felony door down. Anything under $2,000 is just a misdemeanor or a petty offense. Once you cross that $2,000 line, I want you to chant this countdown in your head. 2, 5, 20, 100. 1 million. Those are your critical dollar breakpoints. And definitely remember the fives match rule to anchor yourself. A $5,000 theft matches the Class 5 felony level perfectly. Once you know that $5,000 equals an F5, you can easily count your way up or down the scale. Now, there is a major exception to everything we just talked about regarding those dollar amounts. If a suspect commits theft directly from the person of another, without the force required for robbery, mind you, it is an automatic Class 5 felony. So if they pickpocket 50 cents from someone's back pocket, the dollar value doesn't even matter. It bypasses the entire staircase and lands straight at an F5. So knowing these statutes inside and out gets you through the academy for sure. But truly internalizing them, that's what ensures you make the right call when your adrenaline is pumping. The elements might look clear right now in the classroom, but the real question is, when the radio cracks at 2 a.m. and it's pouring rain, will you know enough to take total control of the scene? Keep studying, stay safe out there, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.